Hello, my real lovelies. Welcome back to the channel, and of course, welcome to my home. Today, I am going to be continuing all the discussions relating to the Cheerleaders book. Work of fiction, I think we should say at this point. So, the first story I'm going to talk about is a leading, and it says here, equalities campaigner in the UK, name of Trevor Phillips, calls Omid Scobie's allegations about racist royals absolute nonsense amid a growing backlash at Omid's relentless twisting of the knife, and says every family of colour discusses a baby's skin colour. Well, of course, let me know if that is true. If you are a person of colour, are these discussions had within your families? So what does he say? He says there is no family of colour anywhere in the world where that conversation doesn't take place. So Trevor Phillips has also said that any chat about Archie would have been out of excitement for a new baby and about whether he would look more like Meghan or Harry. And I'm going to stop here because there's a little bit of confusion that I've seen online. So I just want to kind of talk about the different scenarios. So in the Oprah interview, the first time we hear about the potential royal racist, and of course, Meghan uses the word racism in the interview, but doesn't necessarily attach racism in general to the claim of the person making the comments during the conversation or conversations. She kind of alludes to it, but doesn't go as far as actually using the racism word. So we know Meghan's, what she said on Oprah, so I'm not going to go over that here today. But then we have another account, the Tom Bower book, where he says that conversation was relating to before Harry and Meghan were pregnant. And that happened over tea at Clarence House. Now, of course, Clarence House, the London residence of Prince Charles and the Duchess of Cornwall, now still it's their residence as King and Queen because Buckingham Palace is still being renovated. So if those conversations happened then there's a discrepancy between what Meghan and Harry were inferring in Oprah and what the Tom Bower account is. So when Harry and Meghan sort of mention or refer to multiple conversations, was there one that happened whilst they were pregnant? And was there one that happened prior to, perhaps over tea at Clarence House? And I'm not saying that any of these accounts are true and accurate. I'm just saying those are the two scenarios that we have put before us. And both, well, the Tom Bower book kind of, says that he spoke to sources and all the rest of it. So we have two very different accounts. I think it's important not to get hung up on the where and when, because that's almost irrelevant, really. What is more important is, of course, whether or not this conversation or conversations actually happened at all. I think most people are kind of accepting the fact that perhaps a conversation or conversations regarding skin colour did happen. But what is key in all of this is the context, and that is what sadly we are lacking in the Tom Bower sort of explanation or description of it. It was done very kind of, almost like, I suppose, how is the baby going to look? What skin colour, eye colour, hair colour, all the rest of it, all the things that you would normally discuss about, are they going to have this feature from one parent or this feature from the other? But in the Oprah interview, they inferred, of course, that there was more serious about how dark his skin colour might be. And I was kind of thinking to myself, actually, from the royal family point of view, why would they be discussing how dark a baby's skin colour would be? The first option, the obvious one that was being inferred by Harry and Meghan, is that there was racism involved, or, as Harry confessed later on, unconscious bias, so claims of unconscious bias. The other explanation, I think, is regarding protecting Harry and Meghan. Harry and Meghan are quite quick to sort of say that they weren't protected, that there was nothing put in place to protect them, there was no fight back from any stories. But I actually think that if there was any conversations about this, it could actually have been in relation to what if Archie had a little bit of backlash in the press, which I don't think there would have been, by the way, but if there was, how would we deal with it? So in other words, Harry and Meghan could have been, claiming that the royal family were not going to do anything to protect them, but yet here we could actually see potentially steps being taken, discussions had to protect in the event of any sort of, press attacks, if you like, on Archie, which is ludicrous because I definitely don't think that would have happened. So that leads me to conclude that I just think there's been a complete massive misunderstanding about the conversations that were had and the context in which they were in. We already know, that recollections may vary. And I think Harry's recollection, which of course Meghan wasn't even there for this conversation. She was told second-hand information off Harry and then made her own assumptions on this. And then there was letters with King Charles. But yes, we'll get into those a little bit more detail in a moment. So Trevor revealed that his family had the same conversations about his youngest grandson and believes that discussing skin colour in a mixed-race home should be viewed no differently to discussing the colour of a child's eyes or hair. The chat about Archie, he said, if it happened at all, came to a head this week with two alleged royal racists. Now, I should stop here and say that the cat is well and truly out of the bag. Piers Morgan on his talk show, on his news talk show, spectacularly revealed who those names were. Now, he was very, very careful to say, of course, that there is no proof that, for example, these names did actually have the conversations, but these are the names that were in the book. And he said, well, if the Dutch people and other people in the world can know who those names are, if it's out on social media everywhere, which I'm sure all of you by now know who those names are, then why shouldn't the British people know who it is? And I kind of agree, because it does open up that conversation where we can maybe try and get some context. I don't think we will. I think the royal family will keep a very dignified silence and a very dignified position on this. We've already seen William and Catherine out for the Royal Variety performance, which will air later on in December, but it was recorded, and they are putting on a very stoic front, which I think is the best thing to do. Just get out there, keep calm, carry on, don't be dragged into this kind of mudslinging match. Whether or not it's come from Harry and Meghan via Omid Scobie, via some kind of press attention, shenanigan that potentially happened. I'm using all these potential words, So yes, the cat is well and truly out of the bag, but the majority of the British press are still maintaining silence. Now, a few publications have said that they will say those names, potentially in due course. When questioned about all of this, Omid Scobie, the cheerleader-in-chief, is maintaining his innocence. Oh, I'm innocent. It wasn't me. I didn't put those names in. I didn't have anything to do with the foreign translations. No, the foreign translations are everything to do with you, because a translation comes off the original manuscript, which is written by the author. In this case, that is the cheerleader-in-chief. So it has everything. The book stops with the author. And if I was the author of a book that had been misrepresented, misquoted, names put in that weren't there, mistranslations, I would be absolutely fuming. I would be apologising left, right and centre, which he is not, which tells me a tale. Tells me, one, that he's not sorry, and two, potentially he did plant it in there, or it was a planned publicity leak or something. Anyway, if it was me, I would be screaming blue murder, and I would want heads to roll. We already had a lot of people in the comments were saying, who is the translator? The translator came forward, an experienced translator, a female. And she's been working on translating books from English into Dutch for decades. So we're not talking about someone who's inexperienced in translations, who doesn't know the business and the role. She is experienced, and she said she's documented as saying she didn't want to talk too much about it because I think it's she doesn't really want the attention, which is fair enough. I wish certain people didn't want the attention, but she did say enough to say that those names were there. She translated what was in front of her. So whether she got an original draft and an original manuscript, an unedited one, is irrelevant. The fact is that those names were there, and probably about an extra 5 sentences were there. So the plot thickens, my love, doesn't it? Are those little claw prints leading back to Castle Grayskull in Montecito? Who knows? Who knows? But all the clues are stacking up. So the translator says that it was there. I suppose the only other option that we should discuss is perhaps somebody planted the name there, which is highly unlikely. I mean, we've had experienced authors come out and said, this has never happened. There's never ever been translation errors or things put in the book that weren't there originally. So unless it's some kind of real, joke that happened or something, some misdemeanor going on, a misdemeanor that has very serious consequences when allegations are concerned, then the likelihood is that the name was there. How do you mistranslate a name? The name was there. So I have to say, personally, I don't believe Omid Scobie. I believe the translator because she's got nothing to gain from saying otherwise. Anyway, so Sir Trevor, a former Labour politician and former chairman of the Equalities and Human Rights Commission, was previewing his Sunday show when he was asked whether he would cover the Endgame scandal. He said, "It's unlikely we're going to spend much time on that because I'll be absolutely frank, I think it's a nonsense story. I think that there is no family of colour." Well, we've said all about that. So he is not convinced by it. Right. I think I'm going to move on to another pertinent point to make. So Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, still insists she didn't leak names of the royal racists to Omid Scobie. Sources close to the Duchess. Now again, I will say we don't know who these sources are, but Harry and Meghan have got previous, they've got previous misdemeanor for allowing friends, potentially work colleagues, talking to the media on their behalf. We have proof of that from court cases. So although no proof of this directly, they have previous. So, we're not basing it on frivolities here. Who named the pair in a letter to the king, say she never wanted them to be publicly identified. So, if the source is to be believed, then Meghan is confirming that there were indeed 2 people, even though they only mentioned one in Oprah. So Meghan Markle and members of Team Sussex did not hand, apparently, Omid Scobie her letter to King Charles about the 2 so-called royal racists, sources close to the Duchess insisted. So if he didn't see the letter, which he basically infers that he has, because he's, he seems to be able to write all about it, it's almost like he was there being shown it perhaps over a coffee, who knows. So somebody must have, unless he's completely making it up, but nobody has actually denied. I mean, to be fair, the royal family have not denied the existence of this letter. And Harry and Meghan have not denounced it either. See, a lot of people are saying as well, if, they haven't actually come out and denounced it. We're hearing it via sources. They themselves have not come out and said, we did not do it. So he's had it from somewhere. Where? Well, I know where these little claw prints are leading to. Back to Castle Grayskull, most definitely. An insider close to Meghan insisted that despite the royal racism row she started after appearing on Oprah, she did not want them named publicly. Harry and Meghan have not commented publicly, as I've just said, or the scandal that has erupted over the Dutch translation. Now, I want to stop here and talk about the, it says the scandal. Well, it has been a scandal. It has been in the newspapers. It has been, most definitely, a topic of conversation on social media and YouTube and all the rest. But it has not, Endgame has not really, it's wobbled the monarchy. It hasn't rocked it. People are not there with their pitchforks demanding a republic, and they certainly won't be anytime soon. It hasn't really changed anyone's view. I think a lot of people are sensible enough and smart enough and brainy enough to be able to put two and two together and come up with the correct number, rather than all these scurrilous claims adding up to 16. That's not the case. Most people, I think, know that if there were conversations, it would not have been in that sort of way. King Charles has helped many, 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 many thousands young people of different ethnic backgrounds through the Prince's Trust. He's set it up, with the primary aim of helping, especially those from deprived inner city areas. So he's helped. He's most definitely not racist. Think of all the different things that he has done, and he's championed lots of different religions as well, even at a time when it was unpopular to do so. So King Charles is not racist. And I definitely don't think the other person named is either. And by the way, I actually think that the second name is most definitely a scapegoat name. I think that she wasn't even there for these conversations. I very, very much doubt that there would have been an opportunity where Harry, the main person named, and then the second person named, would have necessarily been in the same place to have had this conversation at the time when Meghan said during Oprah. Perhaps maybe the tea at Clarence House, there could have been early conversations about, what a child might look like. But I don't know. I think, I've got a feeling that the other person potentially could be someone else from the family that was alluded to, because initially, remember, there were claims that the second person was somebody that wasn't high up in the family, potentially could have been a household member or someone distant in the family sphere. I personally think it's somebody distant from the family sphere, who we've already had a big clue. I'm kind of pointing to something here. This isn't the one, but somebody who likes to wear brooches. Potentially, that could have been the person that was being inferred. But I think, in terms of scapegoat, the second name was kind of fit into a lot of narratives. It enabled Harry and Meghan to get a little bit of retribution on the person who they think is being put out in the press as being holier than thou, saintly, perhaps not doing terribly too much. It also fits the press narrative to go along. Well, the press haven't published that name, but it fits that narrative to let it kind of go, because this person is fairly high up, but not necessarily in the line of succession. So it creates a good base, so that when these names can be mentioned in the mainstream media, it will most definitely get lots of column inches. So I think the second name is most definitely the sacrificial lamb, if you like. Royal experts have also said that the couple, as I've said myself, must publicly condemn the book. Otherwise, basically, they are condoning it, with several commentators severely doubting whether the names in Endgame can even be correct, which is what I have just spoken about. Let me know what you think about that. The Daily Telegraph reported today that they had spoken to sources close to Meghan who say she's clear that she never intended the royals to be publicly identified. The source also denied that the letter she sent to Charles was leaked to Scobie by her or anyone in her camp. Well, who did? It most definitely would not have benefited the royals, I don't think, to have leaked it to the cheerleader. it would have, gone against, I suppose, their trying to keep it private. By the way, I will take this time to comment on William and Catherine's look for the royal variety. I've got a picture in front of me now. She looked absolutely gorgeous. Again, we're seeing lots of cape coats. Originally, I wasn't a real big fan of these kind of cape coats. But now I think they're slowly growing on me. And she does look really good. So it's not the red version that we saw during the Korean state visit, but a blue version. That kind of blue that has become synonymous, I think, with the colour that the now Wales family often employ, dressing all matchy-matchy in blue. William looks very, very dashing, of course, as well. So yes, a big, big, big win on the outfit, and most definitely a show of dignity, of solidarity in the face of all of this scandal going on. So yes, most definitely Endgame has not affected the royals in any way. King Charles is getting on with business as usual. William and Catherine are getting on with business as usual. There hasn't really been any change. King Charles also has told world leaders that the earth does not belong to us, and says his grandchildren will be living with the effects of climate change in 2050, as he calls on nations to work together to boost the environment at COP28 in Dubai. So King Charles, most definitely, probably quite glad that he's there, to be honest. It kind of takes away from being here while all this is going on. And actually, the most important issue is not what's going on in the UK right now with his family. It is the global climate crisis that is going on. And, I think it's important that somebody of his standing, with his gravitas in the world, are using their platform to speak about this. Would Her late Majesty have done the same thing? Well, I mean, she has done, she actually has spoken on the environment in previous years. But I think that the King is taking a much more active role when it comes to these things. And I think he has been afforded a little bit more leeway when it comes to being able to speak about these things, primarily because we already know his stance on a lot of these world issues, for being the longest standing Prince of Wales in British royal history. So there's almost no point in denying, his position on these things. And where he can shine a light, I think it can only be a really positive and good thing. Jan Moir, M-O-I-R, not quite sure how you pronounce it, says it beggars belief to suggest Harry's family implied that a non-white baby wouldn't be welcome. Again, I'll stop and talk about it. Meghan was welcomed into the family with open arms. All these people saying, that there was, hatred going on about Meghan. I mean, I do believe that Catherine and Meghan are completely different people, and, never particularly were going to be bosom buddies. I definitely don't think that there's been an invite to Castle Grayskull for afternoon tea from Harry and Meghan. But anyway, Meghan was accepted. Whether people want to agree with me or not, we have the evidence in front of us. No other future potential royal bride, fiance, marrying into the family was afforded the same that Meghan was afforded. She was welcomed with open arms, flung open. She was given a tour of the United Kingdom. She was sent on, she was doing royal engagements before she was even married. They were given plum Commonwealth roles after marriage. She was given an HRH, which they could have potentially have said no to. She was even offered that she could carry on working. They were offered 2 homes, just like William and Catherine. They only chose to have one. It was all paid for. They were given the earth. They were sent on foreign tours. They were allowed to do different projects that they wanted to do. They were allowed in the end to have their own sort of household in conjunction with, half being funded by the Duchy of Cornwall, half by the Queen and the Duchy of Lancaster and the Privy Purse. So they were given everything. So this notion being put out by Harry and Meghan supporters that they were treated badly and it's all because she's mixed race is a complete load of hogwash. So the very notion, bearing in mind Meghan is mixed race, she married a white man, Harry, so their baby, would have heritage, but would not be a 50-50 mixed race person. So the very notion that the royal family would reject a child born of this union, of this marriage, when Meghan herself was welcomed with open arms into the family, is absolutely ludicrous. Absolutely ludicrous. At the time, I remember reporting on it myself, people were very open and welcome to the fact that the royal family finally had some diversity in it. I myself was very, very happy and pleased that this, just happened to be the situation that we were in. It was a really good thing, and I still think it's a missed opportunity. But anyway, Meghan was welcomed with open arms. So they go on to say, truly, it is hard to believe that the comments did not come from a place of love and were never intended to hurt, patronise, nor cause division. And if the names are guilty of a deadly gaucherie, then so are Harry and Meghan for enthusiastically embracing the most poisonous interpretation possible of the words, the implication that a baby who was not white was not welcome. It does. The very notion just completely beggars belief, and one that, unless we have concrete evidence to the contrary, I most definitely do not think that's the case. You can just about see a tail off screen. Rory has come to join us. Right, so I also want to read a little thing that the cheerleader said in an interview promoting the book. He said he was hurt by the suggestion. I mean, if he's hurt, does he not realise how hurt other people might be to be falsely named in a book in this way? He was hurt by the suggestion and dismissed it as a conspiracy theory by people who want to believe that he is in cahoots with Meghan Markle. Well, he was. He was in cahoots with Meghan. That was proven during the court case. I mean, we haven't got proof for this instance, but there's previous, my loves, there's previous. Declaring, it couldn't be further from the truth. Well, we know that he's a purveyor of the truth, don't we? He also refused to apologise for the racism scandal that has erupted, claiming, I'm as frustrated as everyone else. The book I wrote, the book I edited, the book I signed off on did not have names in it. Well, where did they come from then? Like I said, I would be apologising left, right and centre, saying, I am so sorry. I don't know where these got in. I'm trying to investigate it. I'd be saying all this sort of stuff. And he just absolutely is not. He couldn't give two hoots, my loves. He couldn't give two hoots about it. In fact, I bet he's probably quite happy that all of this is going on. And as I've said before, the names of the royals were there in black and white. As the Dutch translator said, I did not add them. So they were there. He was asked to say, hand on heart, that the farrago over the Dutch translation was not a PR stunt. He raised his hands, shaking his head, and replied, on my life, on my family's life. Mrs. Derbyshire said, you don't have to go that far, it's fine. And he said, no, it's serious because I feel hurt by some of the things I've seen that have suggested a conspiracy theory that this is some kind of publicity stunt and I'm in cahoots with my pal Meghan. And nonsense like that because it feeds into something that couldn't be further from the truth. Well, what is the truth then? I think you need to come up with it. She then said, in some version you must have written the names in, and the wrong version was potentially has gone to the people in charge of the rights around the world, I suppose. And Mr. Scobie did not respond to that. So in other words, the names were probably there at some point. He probably did write them, and then it was probably taken out. So yes, they most definitely were, I think, written. Anyway, I'm going to leave it here now. Please let me know all of your thoughts and comments. I really, really do want to know what you think about the ongoing farrago around it. Anyway, thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, please give it a big old thumbs up. Don't forget to share on social media, and of course do hit the bell so that you know whenever I upload a new video. So from me, my royal lovelies, mwah, to you all, and goodbye.